Hello and welcome to Elseworlds, a DC fan podcast, as we are discussing our Creature Commandos finale uh, episode here. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing well. It's good to be able to talk about this. I mean, we probably would have done this sooner if I wasn't sick before. So the fact that I'm doing well is quite the accomplishment. I'm happy about that. And I'm ready to talk some very funny monster uh,
Yeah,
finale of the show.
yeah. That's the. We were just to get it off the rip here. We were both very. We were both sick here as we were trying to record this. I actually started feeling it on the day of this finale. My son was sick the days before. And I guess it spread to me around Thursday afternoon on January 9th. And then even as of last week when I recorded Skeleton Crew, I let Ron host because I was not really I was too stuffed up and I thought that'd be annoying for people. But I think now I'm sounding a little bit more closer to my usual self, which is good. So yeah, we got lots of rest and relaxation. We thought we were going to be able to knock this out, the week after, but that was out the window with stuff going around. I know we had RSV here in the house. That's what I guess we got it from the doctor's office when we took our son, but so that was that. It was the sickest I had been in years, actually. Um, I had never felt this sick except for like when I had COVID after No Way Home released. And it stopped me from seeing it for like my fifth or sixth time.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna go and then I was like, oh, I had COVID, so I couldn't go.
I had last year, this year. Well, I guess it was 2 years ago. Number wise, it was 2023. I had COVID and the flu in a 2 month period. So I had COVID, recovered from it, still a little bit brain foggy. It was weird, and then I had the flu right after that. So that was the worst I had ever been, other than maybe tonsillitis in 2013. So like this one was just kind of refreshing because it was like, oh, I got sick, and it's not the end of the world. Yes. It was just
Yeah.
a little annoying, It was a cold, a little bit of a chest cold, very congested, but I'm sure nobody cares. But
We are going to be diving into episode 7, A Very Funny Monster, directed by Matt Peters, written by James Gunn. It premiered January 9th, 2025 on Max. And this is Nina's background, and we get all the flashbacks. So I guess let's focus on the flashbacks first here, where we get to see Nina is born human, but with lungs on the outside of her body, and it's her dad experimenting to help, build a device that helps her breathe. But then eventually he keeps trying to experiment on her to make her um, be able to breathe, and it creates her into like a mutant, where she becomes like a sea monster type of being and needs the water to breathe. So he actually kind of made it worse, I guess. But um, maybe better because then she was able to breathe and stuff in the water compared to just always having the machine on her. Um, but he, homeschools her and then he does enroll her into a private school to help her get to become, socialized into the society, and it backfires. She gets bullied. She ends up running away and living in Star City and in their sewers until she's captured by police and her dad is killed in front of her. That is all of Nina's background here. And I feel very sorry for her dad as well because his wife just ups and leaves when Nina's like maybe 2 years old.
yeah, not even a toddler, really. You know, it's one of the saddest backstories, and that's saying something. And I thought the father was such a wonderful character and just such a enduring love he had for his daughter. And he was in a winless situation. He couldn't win no matter what he did. And yeah, the mom said, "Well, that's not a life. She won't even look at me." And he's like, "Well, you won't even look at her." Like the mom thought she was a monster, and that's one of the saddest parts about it is you know your mom is incapable of loving you, incapable of realizing that you're living a life. She thinks you should just pull the plug right away. And that to me was the hardest part of the backstory.
Yeah, that is a that was something that kind of hit for me, because as having had a child last year, you do wonder how you react in situations if something were to go wrong like this. They're both excited to have a child born, and the child is born with extreme difficulty, where she cannot breathe without machine help. And really, if it wasn't like her dad was not this, science guy, Nina probably ends up dying anyway, right? So
Yep.
like they are fortunate in the sense that he is able to build her a machine, because she even asks like, well, when she outgrows it, and he says, I'll build her another one. Like, I mean, it's not like whatever. um and I really felt for her dad here, because I feel like it would be tough. We don't know how many times they've tried to have children or anything like that, but you know uh when you are finally a dad, and you are after however many tries or whatever, your ultimate goal is to protect your child and try to give them the best life you can. And I can kind of see her point too, of like, this isn't a life. She's trapped in this machine. Like, she can't do anything. Is she actually living? But her father is going through all of these hurdles to try to just give her a life, and she is happy, and she does seem happy at times, right? It's not until she starts being socialized that she starts getting ostracized and debating on, why am I even around here? And she takes off and lives in the sewers. um this was uh, and ultimately, I think she has probably the most, I wouldn't say the most tragic background, but I would say the most tragic story, in the sense that Nina dies at the end of this episode. um Poised to be the hero, because look, you some people have blamed Weasel. You could, if you want, right? Weasel, we talked about it, is trying to save what he sees as the little girl from his backstory, because he's not a fully, I would say, functioning, you know, mental capability for Weasel, right? Like, we've seen him just like eat pictures
Yeah,
and,
he can't
you know,
dissociate the girl from the princess. It's not
right,
possible for him.
right. So he is saving the princess, which gives her the edge, I guess, to see Nina, or become aware of Nina, and take her out. And we see her menacing eyes when she does stab Nina, and that is kind of our first clue that she was the evil person that they were actually sent to take out. But look, we don't know. Like, the princess could have already have it could have still maybe gotten the upper hand somehow, if Weasel even didn't do that. So we can't pin it all on that, but I would say that it certainly didn't help. Um, but I've seen some debate on this, with the whole like, how is like Nina's character, like, why did she even join? She's not um somebody that's ever killed anybody. Why is she
Nina's
part of
never
this
had any
team?
choice in this. At no
No, I
point
know.
in
I
her
mean,
life
like,
has she had
I think they're
choice.
saying I think they're saying, why would Waller send somebody that is not very combat ready into this? And I would say, Waller is very limited on who she can even send, because the Task Force X being revoked. So she sends what is monsters, and that is the thing, right? Like Nina didn't even start out as a monster.
Mhm.
She was a human, but she is seen as a monster because of her mutation due to her father's experimentation. And she is just told she's a monster. And no, she doesn't have any combat experience or has never killed anybody, but her, like you said, she has no choice. She is sent here on this as a mission of do or do not, right? Because of the limitations Waller has, but also Waller just sees her as a monster, right? Like that's part of the issue, right?
Yep.
She is just constantly seen as a monster when she is not. She is a well-taught person, who was we see that when she's at her getting welcomed into the school and she's at the interview portion. Like she is well spoken. She's been homeschooled by a very smart man, so she has learned almost all of his information, I would say, right? Like she is a very smart girl. And no, that is kind of the tragic part for me, is that she ends up dying for nothing ultimately, um, because of just her looks. Because she was ostracized as a monster, she ends up dying because she is an other. Is kind of what I got from it.
And she has such an emotional intelligence that she runs off to not be a burden to her father and to, kind of free him from the hassle of taking care of her and the life not working. And she's not a killer. She's never going to be a killer. And I mean, it didn't even look natural for her to like eat the fish when she was in the water, and it's not her thing. So I think we see her much different than a Doc Phosphorus, much different than the Bride or Eric Frankenstein. You see this very much like Weasel, not in there because you're a bad person, not in there because you did something wrong. And I think it's the saddest story because she had no control at any point of the story. She was born like it. She was experimented on. At no point did she get a say in anything. And when she did get a say, she runs off and she gets found and she gets her dad shot basically for trying to protect her. And then she gets put into bathtub in a van and taken to Waller, and it's like, and they were ready for it. Like they knew she couldn't breathe underwater. Like I was like, man, they had a truck just ready for this. That's tragic. They did not give one crap about her, anybody in the whole time.
It really goes to show you that there's nowhere for these people to go.
Yep.
Um, she was ostracized from society because of her looks and being a monster. And even when she willingly took herself out of society, people hunted her down because there was a monster in the sewers. There's a monster at the lake. And it just kind of goes with that whole like, uh, you know, same thing. Like if you want to take like Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot, whatever, right? Like people seek those things out,
Yeah.
even though they would just be chilling in their environment because it's Bigfoot, because it's the Loch Ness Monster. So now imagine it is this girl monster who lives in the water. And, some people are like, oh, did you see that like amphibian woman? Like, we got to get her and see what experiment on her, or we got to get her and see what she do. Maybe she's killing people. Maybe she's a danger to us. And it just becomes this, issue where it becomes a big problem where there is nowhere for them to go. Weasel kind of had a similar thing. Weasel is living in the bushes and sees the kids and is just playing with the kids, right? And he's just living and doing his thing. Up, somebody here comes and misinterprets that and is trying to kill him. That one's a little bit more justified because, it looks like he's pinning
We,
children. She
yeah,
was really just eating fish in the water, being
yeah,
herself. And it
hundred
is
percent.
like there's nowhere for her to go. She couldn't live at home, and she couldn't live out where she belonged because people hunt her down.
The
Um,
saddest part was when, to me, when she's playing lacrosse and she's like, "What is this game?" And she starts playing lacrosse.
yeah,
And instead of playing lacrosse, the people on the field are just torturing her. It's like the game didn't even matter. It was just like, let's beat up this. And I'm like thinking the whole time, what if the helmet cracks on the field? Uh, I
yeah.
I I was surprised, but I, but that was the one time she said, "Here's something I want to do. Here's the next thing I want to explore," and she couldn't even do that. And that's when you're just like, nothing is built for her, and that's kind of a powerful thing. I feel really bad for this character, and the backstory for this one, no wonder she couldn't kill the princess because she never developed any anger. She was just running from things over and over again. She never confronted it. She didn't have a mean streak in her body. The story would be very different if she was a vengeful person. She just wanted to get along and just be accepted. And that's why, she wasn't a killer.
So in the present day, then we do have Nina, who ends up dying at the hands of the princess. Weasel had alerted her, so now Weasel is being treated as what they say they're going to build a statue of him or something, right? He's being treated as a hero,
Yep.
and the bride before this too, they noticed something before Frankenstein arrived, which he gets shot and left. But Frankenstein comes in trying to warn them of something. The bride is sick of his shit and just shoots him. But while they're in that security office, they see the security cameras. We don't see what they see at this point, but it will be shown again when they bring up the bride sneaks away here, goes and finds Princess Alana, and this is where we kind of get the hey, she was actually evil. The Clayface thing was actually set up by her. That's what they saw on the monitor. And that Clayface um, posed as the doctor after they had actually confirmed Cersei's vision and all of her powers. But it makes it seem like Cersei is the one who set that up. So that way they knew people would not take Cersei at face value and do exactly what they did here, which was be able to get the word out to not kill the princess, right? Like Waller gets a hold of her guards and they give the phone to the bride right when Nina has just died and says, "Call it off. It's our mistake. It's fine." But the bride felt something still incorrect at that part. We saw the Clayface bit now reveal, and the bride puts all of this stuff together and ends up killing the princess. And they all leave before anybody can, I guess, find the body. And we kind of cut to Economos and the bride in the elevator as he leads her to her new team, which we'll talk about in a bit. But so the ones that survive here are Bride, Phosphorus, Weasel. Those are the ones that are going to survive. GI Robot is rebuilt. We'll talk about him in a bit. Um, Frankenstein obviously is going to survive. He's Frankenstein's monster. But we only really lose one person then, and that's Nina. And I think this is set up well. I've seen some people really upset about this, but I think it's set up well in the sense of in the pilot, they talk about if you're going to, she tells Flag, if you're going to kind of win these people over, it's through Nina Mazursky. And the bride is very quickly won over by Nina. And it's kind of been this thing of those two, the bride looking out for Nina and kind of seeing her what I would say is a little sister. And when she sees her die and she knows that she was like the good one, it hurts the bride. And at that point, the bride wants revenge for that and does take out the princess. I thought the resolution was great with the princess actually being evil. We've talked about that being a possibility, and that Cersei may have been incorrect, or that we've talked about all the possibilities. And I think that this worked the best, knowing that there's only one episode left, episode 7. So when that is revealed and we're near the end of the runtime, I'm like, this makes sense. You have Clayface, all this stuff is making sense. Ilana knows that they captured Cersei, so she probably knows that they're going to have somebody that is the authority in Themyscira there, so she's able to send Clayface to pose as her once she confirms that information. None of that is a stretch to me. I've seen people ask, how does she know Clayface? I'm assuming Clayface is a known entity, and she's a princess, so she just invites Clayface.
I can see Clayface in that situation. He probably got paid handsomely for it.
Because she's a princess, exactly.
Exactly. So I didn't have a stretch of anything. I also think it concludes the story in a nice little knot where if you go on to season 2 and it's not very Cersei related, if it's not like down this whole rabbit hole, like it's fine. It could be a different story, and it doesn't really matter because killing the princess kind of closes the circuit. I also like that she called Nina her only friend, which was kind of powerful. It really made me like Nina even more, which was kind of frustrating because she kicked it. But I really liked the ending of this, and I thought the bride being clever and being a leader and doing what she had to do, I liked it. I like the idea of the bride being the leader of the team. It's a group of misfits with a strong leader. It's she's the Sarah Lance. But actually, Eric Frankenstein probably sees her as pretty as Sarah Lance. Uh, so it works. I like that. I like that whole dynamic. Um, I think G.I. Robot in the next season. Oh my goodness, he's going
What
to
a
be a
tank.
problem.
What a
He's
tank.
going to be a problem. You thought he was pretty powerful before. All I got to say is, Elon might want to calm down with his little salutes.
It was I was very happy to see G.I. Robot. I thought they would have him back just because we talked about it. He's a robot. We were kind of sure he'd come back. The bad thing is he's going to have to learn about Nina, right? That was his friend
Nina.
as well. So that'll hit a little bit as well. But no, I mean, I thought it's funny. I think for whatever reason, when it comes to some of these shows, and what I mean is like online shows, the streaming shows, or just shows in general now, people can praise a show and then for some reason the finale airs and everything flips. And I watched this without hearing what most people thought of the finale. I watched this as soon as I pretty much woke up, and I enjoyed it. I thought this was a very good wrap up. I was not underwhelmed. I think I would have been if the bride didn't put it together, but then, we get to like at that point where they call it off and Nina's dead, and we had seen the princess's eyes. I was like, she has to be the evil one then. And then it kind of cuts to them getting, commended in the castle, and I'm like, we still have some time left, right? Because this is not going to stretch into season 2. I feel like this is a 1-season thing, and then it happens, and we get those pieces, and I think that was satisfactorily, wrapped up, in my opinion. I had seen some sentiment go, like, oh, the finale is disappointing, or the finale is has ruined the show for some people, and I just don't really understand that. I wish people could maybe, if you are that and you have listened to this, send us an email or a social media
I
post.
think we use the word ruin too freely. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah. I
like,
think if anything is
yeah,
like, if I enjoy 6 episodes of a show and then I get
right.
to this finale in particular, there are certain finales I have tough times with, like
How
How
I
I Met
Met Your
Your
Mother.
Mother. That is something that can
Yeah,
ruin it. But like this didn't do anything against the grain with that. So like
yeah.
in my opinion, I felt like, but if you do have that opinion, let us know. Like if you need to send us an email because it's a long thought,
Like,
send it in. I'll read it. I'll be curious. But
honestly, if it ruined it for you, I'm fine with it if it comes with an explanation of this is why, and we have a
right.
conversation about it. We're not really like upset with people who don't like things. We're upset with people who don't like things just to not like it. There's a huge difference in conversation and hating, and I actually think, honestly, I saw more conversation than hating in the first place. I thought this was talked about pretty well online for online standards anyway. I mean, come on, it's been pretty bleak. But I think that, you're entitled not to like the show. What I don't understand is the people who said, "Oh, it was too James Gunn. It was too much like
mm,
Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad." I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what was offered. Like, it was exactly what was
right,
pitched.
it's Task Force M. It is the next
It was
evolution of the Suicide Squad.
like the people are over and emphasizing the fact that it's the beginning of the DCU technically. Uh,
That is I think that is my
yep.
biggest problem, Chris. It's people who say, "Why did we get this? Why did we?" There's people asking that. Why did we get this? Why did this start the DCU? And why was this made? Type of thing. And I'm like,
Well, first off, it was made before James Gunn was the head of DC,
yes, he
so
pitched it before that,
right,
and
right. It was
it was
coming
already
down
in the
the
works.
pipeline. Yeah, exactly. So first off, that's why we got it. That's literally the definition of why we got it. Secondly, it doesn't. It's a cheap content for Max, and it doesn't ruin anything. This does not set up anything that is problematic for the DCU unless you really want it to be. Like, if you're like so beholden to that image of Batman being the exact way that Batman looks, when James Gunn's basically said he doesn't really want to be beholden to anything,
Yeah, you'll be
then
disappointed if that is your thought.
yeah,
I feel like.
but but that's a choice. Like, that's a choice to be in that. I think we should say, if you enjoyed this, what does it matter why we got it? If you didn't enjoy it, okay, this is a pretty forgettable show. If you didn't enjoy it, life moves on, and then Superman comes out and you're fine. Like,
Right,
it's
right.
the argument that, oh, well, you needed to set a start the universe right, is laughable, because we've said this. I think every podcast that covers this has said some form of this, whereas the official kickoff of the DCU is Superman, and the nerd kickoff is Creature Commandos,
Hmm.
and it doesn't actually set anything in motion, because we all know everything is on Superman. It's this intellectual dishonesty. You're trying to be dishonest with yourself about it, and then that bothers me. I don't have a problem with you not liking the show. I have a problem with you being angry at the show being the start of the DCU, as if, and a lot of people just don't like animation and are crapping on that.
Right, right,
So
right.
I I I it, I think we've reached a point on the internet, especially, whereas how you dislike something is more important than if you dislike something.
My main problem with some of this stuff is the why is this being made? Why was this to kick it off? The answer is clearly because it was already in the works. Why are we getting a Peacemaker season 2? Is because that was renewed before he took over. This is stuff that they want on HBO Max, right? But what I would also say with this is I've seen some complaints about how it doesn't set up anything. Good. I feel like I've been railing on this since on every show I've been doing recently, that these projects should not be there to set up something else, whether it's a Star Wars show, whether it's DC, whether it's Marvel. These shows should be able to stand on their own. This does. You do not need to have seen anything else to watch this show, and that's how it should stay. This
And James Gunn has been railing on that too. James Gunn has
exactly.
explicitly said over and over again three things. Three things James Gunn has said consistently: script and quality of script before you do anything else. The second thing he says is that we're not going to have a bunch of stuff to set up something and create a homework problem. And the third thing is the story should take care of itself. Everything in it is for the service of the story. There's nothing shoehorned in. So those are the three things James Gunn has consistently said. So if you're watching a James Gunn property and you're complaining about that, you're not listening to James Gunn. So how bought into the DCU are you? Because you're not even listening to what he's saying they're going to do in the DCU. I mean, there was a post-credit scene in this, and it was just kind of funny. That's it. Fun.
Yeah, and it reveals that Frankenstein is alive. So he will continue looking for the bride. That sets up a season 2 if they want it to do it, and it got renewed. So that's what they're going to do.
But it's not this world building thing that's going to be connected to Superman somehow. I feel like the fans can't really win because when we enjoy these things, we're told we're not supposed to enjoy these things because that's not how it's supposed to be done. And when we don't enjoy things, we're told that we're being haters and everything. So you can't really win as a fan. I would just say enjoy what you enjoy, don't enjoy what you don't enjoy, and just stop talking about things you hate in a way that is supposed to knock down. Because people talking about Creature Commandos saying, "Oh, they don't like Creature Commandos," doesn't hurt me. I enjoy Creature Commandos, and I'm talking about Creature Commandos because I enjoyed it. Honestly, if we're in episode 7 of this thing, if I hated Creature Commandos, you would know it, guys. But I wouldn't. If Jordan loved Creature Commandos and I hated it, I wouldn't be like, Jordan, what are you talking about? You're an idiot.
Here's my pitch. And this is how you should treat the DCU, and this is how you should treat pretty much anything, I feel like. If you are a fan of DC, check out Creature Commandos. If you don't like the first episode or 2, you're not going to like the show. So stop watching it.
Perfectly said.
You do not have to watch every piece of content to understand the overall story. You are not going to have watched this to understand Lanterns. And I still see sentiment like this of like, why is this going to tie in the Lanterns? It probably won't. And that's fine. It just takes place in the same world. If the reason you should be watching this show is if you watched it and enjoyed the characters, you should continue watching for the characters. You shouldn't be watching this to get the first look at the DCU Batman. You shouldn't be watching this for the flash forward vision scene and try to figure out who is in the Justice League, who is in Teen Titans, because that stuff is not going to matter at the end of the day.
Jordan, it reminds me of the people who watch She-Hulk waiting for the Daredevil episode.
Yes.
And every week they complained that there was no Daredevil.
When's Daredevil coming in?
And then Daredevil came in, and then they either hated the Daredevil thing, they thought they ruined the character, and then the entire conversation every week somehow for She-Hulk was about Daredevil. But Daredevil wasn't the focus of the show. I feel like we had a little bit of Banner and She-Hulk talk at the beginning of that show, and then it was just Daredevil after like the second week, and you're just like, it ruined my enjoyment of the show because every time I logged on to the internet of any app, it was, where's Daredevil? And I couldn't even talk about that show, which was actually kind of funny and kind of for the genre broke some molds, and I thought it was a little bit needed. But it was one of my favorite of the Disney Plus shows, to be honest with you. But the whole point is, this reminds me of that. It's
it does. If I was to relate it, it would be if you take the episode where Batman showed up, the Phosphorus episode. It felt exactly like the episode when Daredevil showed up, and people examining what he's wearing. Why is it not as dark as the Netflix show? Because it's a totally different character.
Gone. Yep.
Totally different character. And nobody's talking about the actual plot and the actual character work. It's all about the, how does this fit into the Netflix show? How does this fit into Born Again when that comes out? Like, sometimes, guys, these characters are just going to show up in somebody else's work, and that's all you get. That's fine. We don't have to.
And also, it's Gotham. The whole thing that kills me about this Doc Phosphorus thing is, and we talked about it in that episode that we did of it, it's Gotham. Like, it would be so weird if Wally West just showed up and was like, Doc Phosphorus, I know you're in Gotham, but you know what? I heard about you in Central City or Keystone City. Like, come on. Like, it's like, it would be weird if Superman flew down and was like, I'm going to stop Doc Phosphorus in Gotham.
And here's the thing, too. I keep seeing people think that because we're getting Clayface, that guarantees we're getting DCU Batman in it. Do not think that. Please do not think that. He might. He might show up. But here's the thing. I doubt it. I think this is going to be a horror film. I'm basing it off what they said. A horror film that's like $40 million budget, focusing on Clayface. Guess what? If you're not a horror fan, I don't think you're going to like the movie, so maybe don't watch it. You do not have to watch every piece of media for the DCU. You can watch Superman and then catch up on Supergirl. You don't have to watch all of these projects if it doesn't, tickle your fancy. That's what I would say. I'm sure everybody would want. I'm sure everybody at DC wants you to watch everything in the sense of it means everything would be popular and everything would be going, but they're very clearly making it so you can watch whatever. There is no Gunn was very open on it. There is no big bad like Thanos that they have planned out right now. It's just stories on characters that live in this world already. Like, that is, I keep also seeing people say, well, they introduced Batman in a cartoon that nobody's watching. And one, this was a popular Max show, so people are watching. But two, they didn't introduce Batman. He makes an appearance as a shadowy figure. You do not need to have seen this to understand Brave and the Bold when Brave and the Bold comes out. You can jump in then. Before we go, let's go ahead and talk about the new team, because we get the Bride, Phosphorus, Nosferatu, who is the, bat lady we've been seeing, Callus, which is like a mummy, Weasel, a rebuilt GI robot, and Nananwe, King Shark, joining Task Force M here. So I'm assuming this will be our team for season 2. I know a lot of people said that the mummy has, brought Nina back to life in the comics and stuff. I don't know if they would do that just because of, I feel like you need to have one death, I think, that continues onward. And I feel like GI Robot was rebuilt. Rick Flag is okay. Frankenstein's okay. So obviously I feel like it has to be Nina. She's the only other one that died.
Yeah, I feel like GI Robot, there's a story reason why you can bring him back. You can just
He's a robot, yeah.
Yeah. Rick Flag was kind of in a coma thing, but woke up and then went critical condition. It's believable. Nina comes back and it's there's no stakes in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm really excited to see King Shark in this.
Num.
So I'm assuming, when season 2 comes in, we'll have King Shark, we'll have Nosferatu, and we'll have Callus, another 3 new members to the team, but one of them being familiar to us from the Suicide Squad. Overall, really enjoyed this season overall, and can't wait to see what they do next. But now our countdown to Superman can commence, as that is less than 6 months away now?
Looks like we made it.
Not yet. 6 months.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay, anything else about Creature Commandos before we wrap up?
No, if you like the show, cool. If you don't like the show, cool. Just let me like the show because it's kind of fun. I think I'm gonna binge watch this as one big movie at some point.
Yeah.
Because when I go back and rewatch these episodes, I'm like, the rewatchability of this show is crazy. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will start wrapping it up here. What we've got coming up here on the podcasts, you mentioned She-Hulk. My friend Casey and I discussed all of She-Hulk when it came out over on the Marvel podcast To the Infinity Saga and Beyond, which you can go back and watch those She-Hulk or listen to those She-Hulk episodes where Casey and I really enjoyed the show. And we talked more than about Daredevil. So we talked about the actual character stuff in the show. So if you're a fan of that, you can check us out over there. We'll also be having our Brave New World coverage over on To the Infinity Saga and Beyond. We're going to be having Daredevil Born Again coverage over there soon. And of course, the new Spider-Man cartoon is going to be launching, and we'll probably do a season wrap-up of it after that's done. Over on the Pod Awakens, we just wrapped up our Skeleton Crew coverage with international superstar Jude Law, bigger than Ryan Gosling to some people, being on that show. He wasn't on our podcast. He was in Skeleton Crew. But so we have that. People can listen to the Skeleton Crew episodes, and we'll be looking ahead now to Andor Season 2 as that gets ready to drop in April. I couldn't help myself. I created another podcast. So if people are TV fans, the new podcast, Top TV, which is where I talk about my favorite TV shows, currently talking season 2 of Severance, the Apple TV Plus show, my favorite current show on the air. So make sure if you're a Severance fan, you're finding us over on Top TV. I'm also going to talk other favorite shows like Lost and Dark and Battlestar Galactica, stuff like that, over on Top TV. Yeah, that's about everything, I think, to plug here. I'm going to be on vacation, but we do have our Smallville Season 8 update that we recorded in advance. That should be dropping while I'm out on vacation. So hopefully everybody's finally ready to hear us talk about Smallville Season 8 as we build to the summer of Superman. Have a great rest of your week.